Burgess Owens is
Yes.
recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairwoman Jackson Lee and Ranking Member Biggs. And thank you for holding this very important hearing today. The concerns surrounding facial recognition technology demands a bipartisan solution, and I look forward to working with my colleagues to address these concerns. I'd like to thank the witnesses today and Mr. Williams. We all agree on the unfairness of what you and your family have had to endure. Thank you so much for your decision to stay in the fight, to share your experiences, and do your best to make sure no other Americans have to experience what you and your family are going through. I'd also like to give a special welcome to my friend and fellow Utahn, Mr. Brett Tolman. Along with other accomplishments mentioned previously, Brett has also been a very strong advocate of criminal justice reform. I'm finding the upside of being toward the end of the questioning is that the remarkable education I've personally received over the last couple hours. The downside is the questions I had coming into the session have been answered. So I'm going to yield the remainder of my time back to Ranking Member Biggs. But before I do, I'd like to highlight something that was mentioned previously, and that is the heartwarming bipartisan concern that I'm feeling and seeing as we go through this topic. I'd also like to point out that as we do come to our solutions of solving the increase of crime that we're seeing everywhere, that we cannot rely on technology. Technology is our tool to help support human relationships, and all human relationships are based on respect. We cannot continue to we cannot continue to demean and disrespect the good servants, the 90% of good men and women policing our communities, and expect technology to make up for it. I'm convinced that this committee will find the solutions and address the concerns of facial recognition technology. Let's take the same passion to bring back the respect for our law enforcement officers, men and women, the same respect that I had when I experienced as a child. Our communities will have the benefit of more confidence in our future innovations once we have that accomplished. And with that, I'd like to yield back my remaining time to Mr. Biggs.
I thank the gentleman for yielding, and Madam Chair. And just a couple quick points. We've had this has been a very enlightening hearing. We've not really addressed, in my opinion, enough the question on reasonable expectation of privacy that's been shattered by the data scraping that goes on by private concerns to develop these databases, which are being referred to. I hope that we can expand our investigation into that, because I don't think the question has been settled through the courts yet either. And if it has, I haven't seen it, but we certainly need to get to that. I also want to comment on Mr. Liu's legislation. I look forward to reading it, Mr. Liu, and I appreciate your efforts on it. And I hope that we can also integrate some of the work that was done in the previous iteration of the OGR committee with Chairman Cummings working on that as well. So I look forward to seeing Mr. Liu and hope that you can get that to us soon. Appreciate it. And then I want to ask Mr. Tolman this question, because it really gets to the heart of some of what we're talking about. I mean, this is just, as Mr. Liu said, this is a can of worms when you open this thing up. But when we start bringing together other technologies, we've discussed this SMS and email, and we've moved from just using this in mere identification, which is in and of itself a problem, to the potential to track movement. This notion of science fiction type pre-crime, stopping pre-crime. In just a very brief, what's your take on that in a very, very brief way, that we're on a spectrum that's going to keep moving to trying to stop people from committing crimes before a crime is ever committed using this kind of technology and others combined?
Yeah, I share the concern, and we have seen that when law enforcement is given additional technology, their first instinct is to utilize it because they have a sincere and genuine desire to work on behalf of our communities and the victims of crime. However, they're often the last one to actually ask the questions, should we utilize this technology? And that has to be the reasoned discussion of members of the legislature that identifies this. We are already seeing that speech and social distancing under COVID and areas where we have not ever been are now areas where we are focusing law enforcement technology and action. And because of that, we're on a slippery slope. And I would share your concern.
Thanks, Mr. Coleman. I hate to cut you off, but I want to finish from our side, where we started with the chair, and that's the testimony of Mr. Williams. So I'm looking here to find it. So yeah, Mr. Williams, in your testimony, your written testimony, you said, quote, "I don't want anyone to walk away thinking that if only the technology was made more accurate, its problems would be solved," close quote. Well, I think the issues we've discussed today are not just issues with accuracy of the technology. I think we're talking about a total invasion of privacy, which is absolutely unacceptable, which at some point is going to give too much power to the state. And we've actually seen it already. And in your case, Mr. Williams, and others that we've discussed today. So I'm looking forward to working with the chair and also Mr. Liu and others on this committee who have a sincere interest in resolving this issue. Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Biggs. You're absolutely right. We